I want you to imagine that I got you and some random stranger on the street. Doesn't matter who. You don't know him and he doesn't know you. And here's what's going to happen. I'm going to give this stranger $10 and then he will decide how to split it. Based off of how he splits it, he gets a certain amount and you get a certain amount. So one portion for him and one portion for you. And then you decide whether or not you agree with that portion. If you agree, then you both get the split amount. So for example, if he split it 5-5, then you both get $5. If he split it 7-3, he gets $7, you get $3. But if you deny, then no one gets any money. So both people leave the experiment or leave the conversation with $0. 0-0. Now here's the scenario. The stranger splits it 9-1. Do you agree or disagree? If you're like a lot of other people, you might actually disagree. You might reject it. That's not fair, no way, you think. They can go F themselves, screw them, then you both walk away with no money. Let's think about your choice. Was that the right thing to do? If you agreed, you actually would have been $1 richer than you are right now. So technically, you missed out on that opportunity to get $1. Let's think about your choice. Was that the right thing to do? If you kept it, if you agreed with his split, you would have been $1 richer than you are right now. $1 richer for maybe a minute worth of your time? That's a $60 an hour wage. That was quite irrational of you to do so. But it was also very human. So, where are these experiments from? I just finished reading a book called Predictably Irrational by Dan Ariely. Low-key kind of annoyed that I just found this out because this book was published in 2008 and I just discovered it recently by some dude from the gym. Shout out to Tariq for recommending the book. Thanks, bro. But this book is basically just a series or like a collection of social experiments that Dan, the author of the book, and also a few of his peers conducted over, and then basically they kind of outline just how irrational humans are. That irrationality kind of is such a defining trait of human beings, and also actually other animals as well. So there's actually a bunch of animals that are also equally irrational, but also a defining trait of humans. This is actually quite odd because I don't know if it's just me, but in a lot of the books and educational material that I read growing up in school, they always assumed that human beings were perfectly rational. If you look at math books, if you look at economy books, right, a lot of the times they always assume that everyone is rational, right? They say the market is rational or the market is efficient. That means that basically everyone is trying to optimize what they want, but that's not actually true according to this book and according to all the series of experiments that this book explains and goes through. So this book actually goes through a lot of different topics and kind of underscores a lot of different ways in which humans are irrational. So if I were to have a video on this entire book, that would take like 15 hours. Just because of how interested I was in the studies. So honestly, I recommend this book a lot. This book is like boom. There's a lot of books that I just read recently. Thanks again, Tariq. That just made my head go boom. So for this video, I just wanted to go more in depth on one specific category and kind of explain some of the experiments that he went through. And namely, this video is going to be mainly about just trusting and how people are very trusting of others and how that's actually very irrational. So here's another experiment that I found was freaking mind-blowing. So there's two people in this experiment. The first person is given $10. So this first person has two options. They can, one, either take the money and go, so they just pocket $10 and nothing happens. Or two, if they give the $10 to this second person, then that $10 now becomes $50. Now when it becomes $50, person 2 or person B now gets two options as well. They can either take the money and run, so they're up $50, woohoo, right? Or they can send it back to person A, and then they both split $25. If both people were perfectly rational and assumed that the other person was rational as well, as in most cases in game theory, right? Whenever you think game theory, you think chess, and then every time in chess, how computers work is, okay, I assume that the person I'm fighting or the person I'm going against is perfectly rational, and they will always do the most optimal move. So I should always do the most optimal move to account for their most optimal move. That's how game theory works, but not so much in human beings. So in this experiment, the most optimal move for person A would be to just keep the $10 and run. Why? Because if you're person A, you're assuming person B will do the most optimal move as well, right? Their most optimal move would be they take the $50 and run. In that scenario, the person B is up $50, you're up 0. Because they're going to take the most optimal move, you should take the most optimal move now, and then you take the $10 and run, so that you're up $10 and they're up $0. But strangely enough, person A decides to trust person B, who is a stranger. Person B then follows through that trust, and rather than just bouncing with the $50, more often than not, right? There are some cases where where they do take the money. Those are scumbags. But person B will then give the $25 to person A, and they're both up $25. So if we're talking purely like rationality and purely just based off of logic, what these people are doing are actually completely illogical, right? Why would I give you $25 when I already have $50 in my pocket? Or why would I risk you just running off with $50 when I already have $10 in my pocket? Both cases are quite irrational, but we choose to trust the other person. Irrationally enough, human beings are very trusting of other people, right? We almost enter like an implicit societal contract of trust. But let's talk about when that other person is actually a scumbag, and that person actually does like take advantage of you, take advantage of your trust, and they just bounce with $50. What do you do now? Well, they actually did a second experiment with this specific scenario. So everything else is the same, right? But at the very end, when they're about to leave, when person B, they have $50 and they're about to leave, they gave person A an option. This option is, you can give $2 of your own money, and then for every $2 you give of your own money, we will deduct $1 from that person's earnings. Now you're like, what the heck? And crazy enough, a lot of the time, person A actually takes out money. So they're now net negative. Rather than just being net neutral, they're net negative. They lose money just to serve justice, just to show them or teach this person B a lesson. Isn't that mind-blowing? So this person would rather just take an L, take a loss, just so that person B earns less money. Honestly, that's crazy. So in the experiment, they actually I think it was this experiment. I might be getting experiments mixed up. In an experiment, they attached a brain monitoring scan, and then they found out that when someone feels betrayed, when someone feels like their trust was taken advantage of, the same parts of the brain that are activated when you feel pain, like ow, when you feel like ow, when you feel pain, those same parts of the brain are activated when someone breaks your trust, when someone betrays you. Those same parts. In a way, your brain feels pain when someone betrays you. Like, not literally, but like nervously? Is that a word? Can you use nervously like that? Like, I'm just gonna say you can't. Nervously, that sounds so weird. Like, whatever. Nervously, your brain actually also feels pain when someone betrays you. I think that's mind-blowing. I don't know. But that just goes to show you that humans are naturally social creatures, right? Like, this is something we've all known. There's almost an implicit social contract that we have with everyone else to be fair. And if you didn't notice this before, but there's often an implicit, a willingness to trust other people before anything happens. For example, you trust a doctor with their health. You trust the teachers with your kids. You trust the government with their safety. You trust the banks with their money, right? You don't know these people individually. You don't talk to every single teacher. You don't, like, the doctor, you just met him on, you just saw him on, I don't know, on some, like, whatever doctor your medical insurance covers, right? Or whatever doctor takes your medical insurance. You don't really know them. You don't know their family or anything. You just trust them with their health. You trust the banks with their money, right? You don't know every single individual bank teller. You don't know Jamie Dimon. You probably know, but like, CEO of Chase Bank, just in case. You don't know these people, but you trust them implicitly, right? And society honestly cannot function without this implicit trust. Think about what happens when we lose this trust, when we feel betrayed. The moment these social institutions, the moment these groups of people lose our trust, or the moment we stop believing in these groups of people, a lot of times societies break down. For example, think about the bank runs in the Great Depression. Think about like 2008, 2007, right? The housing crisis. Think about 2001, right? When everyone trusted the stocks to go up, and then dot-com bubble crashed, and then no one trusts stocks anymore. Even more recently, right? Think about George Floyd. Think about some cases of the pandemic, right? When people stopped trusting the government, stopped trusting the policing bodies, stopped trusting like institutions. We had riots, we had protests, we had boycotts and all these things, and a lot of times conspiracies also spin out because a lot of people are losing their trust, right? They lost their trust in these bigger institutions that they implicitly trusted them. And that's what happens when there's no trust within a society. Things go bad, things go sour. Mentioning George Floyd again, the government and police, they're still recovering from this. There's still mistrust in these institutions because they broke their trust once, and now it's much harder to regain that trust. Even with the body cams, even with all these like laws or whatever, governing bodies, it's so much harder to trust them once they lost your trust once. And what happens when they lose our trust? Well, people tend to seek revenge. People tend to seek vengeance. I didn't realize this until I read the book, but trust and vengeance are two sides of the same coin. I mean, I think that line was specifically quoted from the book. I didn't realize how without trust, there's no reason for vengeance. There's no reason for getting back at someone. Think about it like this, right? If I saw on my speedometer that I was going 60 miles an hour, and then you give me a ticket saying that I went 80 miles an hour, I don't trust you anymore because I think that you're lying. And you giving me a ticket, maybe you were lying, right? But I no longer trust you, and I'm more inclined to seek vengeance than if I know for a fact that I was going 90 miles in a 35-mile zone. If I knew for a fact that that was the case, I'm not going to seek vengeance because I was the idiot going that speed. Maybe some people will feel mad, but I don't think they'll feel betrayed, because they know that what they did was wrong, right? So those are different, right? You don't feel like you have to seek vengeance. You might feel like you want to get out of a ticket and you might go to court anyways just to contest it, but you don't feel like you have this urge to be like, I need to show it to the man, right? I need to get back at him. You don't feel that sense because there was no trust to have been lost, right? He was just doing his job and you messed up. Now, I knew that everyone seeks vengeance, right? If you lose your trust, people are going to seek vengeance. But what blew my mind is, again, another quote from the story or from the book, which is, in order to spite our face, we will cut off our nose. So we will, not only when we seek vengeance, not only will we just try to get back at you, we will purposely harm ourselves just to get back at you, right? In the first example, I could have earned $1, but instead of earning that $1, instead of getting that potential profit, I said, screw the profit, I'd rather see you go to hell. And then the second experiment, which is even crazier, where it's screw everything. I'm gonna pay out my own money to see you not even lose money. For you to earn less money, I will pay money. And not even at an equal rate. Not even at an equal rate. I will pay you $2 so that person earns $1 less. Me being a cheap ass, I would never do that. But oftentimes I can see how a lot of people will do that, right? It's not necessarily with money, but maybe with like your time, right? Maybe you'll spend extra time researching ways to get back at someone. Maybe you'll spend extra time or like extra effort, or like you'll go like stalking around the person just to figure out like, oh, I'm a purposely, I don't know, if you're the cook, just so that they have to drink salty food, you are also signing up to drink salty food as well. We will inflict pain on ourselves. We will put ourselves in a worse situation just to see that justice is served to those people that betrayed us. And that's exactly how much trust means to us and how much trust is integral in our society. Now, I'm not some saint. I'm not saying not to seek vengeance. I am not above that. I'm not like Tanjiro from Demon Slayer or like Deku from Boku no Hero or like My Hero Academia. I'm not gonna just forgive you. Like, I'm human, okay? I'm human, right? I feel that sometimes justice has to be served. And sometimes karma's a little bit slow. Other times, karma just deserves a break, and sometimes you just gotta put justice into your own hands. That's my belief, that's my stance. I'm just saying, as long as the vengeance is equal, and you're not doing anything that actively hurts you, hey, maybe it's just me, but if I were the person that betrayed someone, and someone like hurt me back, I'd be like, well, I deserved it, right? I don't know if anyone else feels that way. Honestly, for me, if I realized that I did something bad to screw someone over, and then they screwed me over again, I'd be like, I deserve that. Honestly, it makes sense that I'm a Libra, because when I was little, I kid you not, you can ask my sister, you can ask other people, I didn't like watching sports because I always felt bad for the team that lost. So I didn't like watching sports, I didn't like playing sports. That was just me. I just go to the gym and weightlift, right? No one's losing, no one's winning. But what's even better than vengeance is just, why break the person's trust to begin with, right? Like, everyone implicitly trusts everyone else, right? That's almost like a given. And it's almost infinitely hard. It is NP complete hard to regain trust after you have lost it. That was a nerd joke. I don't. Just pretend I didn't say that, and don't bother Googling it. So I guess the moral of the story is, when people trust you, try to maintain that trust and try to uphold that trust. Because the moment you lose that trust, it is almost impossible to get back. Now again, I just want to say, like, I'm fanboying about this book. This book was freaking mind-blowing. There's a few other books that I read recently that I do want to talk about as well. But like, there's so many social experiments that are just like, I did not realize that. Like, holy, like my mind, boom, boom, right? Also, boom. My goodness. But like, yeah, that book is really interesting. There's a bunch of different, like, it talks about loss aversion, it talks about endowment effect, it talks about all these other things like this paradox of choice type thing as well, mind-blowing. So like honestly, I do recommend the book. Again, it's called Predictably Irrational. I don't know if I said it correctly earlier, but Predictably Irrational by Dan Ariely. I think he got into some controversy with a bunch of conspiracy theorists, but I think like it's freaking mind-blowing. So like I recommend 100%. When people trust you, try to maintain that trust. That's all I want to say. I don't know. And I trust you to like this video. You probably won't, but whatever, it doesn't really matter that much. Bye bye.